Okay, guys, so project today, RC project, is this MT8. So, the issue I found with this truck is the center diff is brutally loose, major ballooning of front tires, and it's kind of useless to run. So today's project is to pull the center diff out and throw something in the diff, which I haven't decided what it's going to be yet, but I believe it's probably going to be earplugs, which are my liking. Not everybody likes earplugs, but I do. Some guys like 500, some guys like a mil, but my preference is 500. So, or not 500, a million. So that's more than likely what I'm gonna do if I can find the right bit for this. Murphy. Okay, here she is. Okay, so on this truck, it's pretty easy. I've never had this apart, so this, once I get the diff out, it's going to be basically the same as any other truck to actually take the diff apart and mod it. But every truck's different when it comes to pulling the diff out of the truck. So let's see if there's anything else I'm missing. I have a feeling that Subway 6-inch Black Forest cold cut combo sub for only $4.99. Offer ends April 8th. These centers gotta come out too. These center support. Chassis braces are in the way. And those out too. So this show is about solutions and the people behind it. The one that can actually solve plastic. This would be a carbon neutral jet fuel. This is an optimist guide to the planet. To Jamie Lannister on the runway. Battle of the Generations with host Lily Singh. Wednesday, 9-10 Mountain on CB. All activities shown in this program are hazardous and should not be imitated. Viewer discretion. Looking like a real. There are cutters for that. Well, it's 2022 and we don't have the flying vehicles that everybody thought we would yet. This Raptor is actually the closest thing Ford has ever come to building a flying vehicle. It was developed by Ford's racing department, SVT, because they wanted to compete in the 2009 Baja 1000. And the first Raptor, the R, the racing version, campaigned successfully. For the 2010 model year, the civilian Raptor came out, and most of the mods from the desert racing truck found their way to this. The result was wildly different than all right. We'll turn the damn TV off. It shares no body panels with the stock truck. We're down anyway. These wide body fenders were absolutely necessary because they widened the track of the truck 7 inches. That gave it almost 12 inches of play in the front suspension travel.
Yeah, so on the MT8, these four upper bolts hold the case for the diff on the top, and then on the bottom there is 3. The other 4 keep the bottom case. The other 4 bigger hex bolts keep the bottom part of the case, diff case, in the truck. You don't gotta take those out. All this has to come out. So with that out, that just lifts off. And there's the center diff. That's a nice beefy diff. Holy crap. That's awesome. You can get it out. Okay. There you go. So there's the diff. And it's got some shims on it. No shims on this side. But it's got shims on this side. So, and also it's got O-rings for the axle, take up the axle slot and then center axle slot. So I'm going to put this down here, get it out of the way, and we're going to do a diff. What I usually like to do, take these shims off. So just one? Yeah, there's just one. And we will pull these 4 screws out. Actually, just want to make sure. Okay, just want to make sure that the bolts weren't going to hit the bearing. What we'll end up doing there is the screw will butt up against the bearing, either damage it or tip the hole because it can't come out, and I'm still trying to spin it. There's number 4. So, I've lost one. Did I lose one? Nope, it's right there. Alright, so I'm going to pull this apart. It's got like nothing in it at all. So generally, I believe this will be a pin. Yeah, this will have a pin in it. This doesn't really have to come off. What I like to do, depending on what's in there, sometimes if there's a lot of crap in there, you end up having to pull all the gears out. And clean it all out. Make sure there's nothing to contaminate or alter what you're putting in there. But that wood I wanted to just pop off. Maybe I'll take it off just to show everybody. Something smaller. Okay, let's go with the big one. So if you just, a lot of the times you can't, you gotta go around it to pull it off, because you'll cock it sideways. But see, there's the gear, and there's the pin below it. So generally you don't have to take this off. but I just took it off to show you. So anyways, with the diff itself, it looks pretty good. There is some silicone oil in there, but not a lot. And I'm going to see if I can get this gasket off. Most of these diffs don't have, these got two little like dowels to get the gasket right on the right spot, and a lot of the diffs don't have that, but this one does. So now what you do is you look at the pin, you'll see a top pin and a bottom pin in the cross. Pop that top pin out, put your fingers on either end because you don't want that to fall apart. Though it's not hard to get back together, but you don't want it to fall apart. And then see, this second pin has a recess in it for that pin to sit in. That pin also has a recess, but it faces the other way. Then you pop this one out. Same way. Like these just come apart. They just slide off. They've got these little keepers that keep the basically slide into the case here. So take those out. And then this could be the probably the most difficult part of these diffs is getting this, and it's not difficult, but getting this other gear out if you need to take it out. I'm not taking it out because there's very little in here, and I can clean most of it out just by putting a rag in there. See, it's really clean. Minimal in there. So that mimics the other side. And it has a pin below it and probably shims below the pin, but I'm not taking it out. Okay, so there you go. It's apart. So now my preference is silicone earplugs. So these I just got off Amazon. Colors are irrelevant. That's just for if you're using them as earplugs and you don't want to mix them up. You can use all these different gear oil or silicone oil. There's 1 million. I usually buy the associated stuff. There's 100K, 500K, and that's another 500K. So you can use that stuff, but I generally might use it on front and back, but the center, it's just preference for me. I just like I like wheelies, so I usually basically lock the center diff on anything that I goof around with. So what you do is, what I usually do is I take an earplug, and it's going to vary with, this is a 1/10 or 1/8 scale diff. I don't think this is much bigger than the 10th scale truck, but you can cram some earplugs in there. That's about one earplug in this diff. And then I'm just going to clean off this one gear. Take it, find the recess in it. They're both the same. You can put them in either way. But we'll just set this in here. Make sure the recess goes all the way in. That shaft it'll just center itself. Push that all the way in. Then take the second one, clean it off. best you can, and put it in with the recess down so it seats into that other recess. Jam that in there. Okay, so they're pretty well seated in there. If you want to seat it in a little bit better, you can take a screwdriver and put it on the shaft. Push it down, just be careful you don't pierce yourself doing it. And then what I like to do is put a little bit more on top, because that's going to squish all around the try not to get it on the outside where the ring gear meets the case. Okay, so there. Then gasket goes back on. In this case, it's got those stupid little dowels, which they're not really all that stupid, I guess. Just never dealt with that before. Usually you got to try to line it up and messing around trying to get it centered so you can get the screws in without wrecking the gasket and blah, 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 blah. So there, that's back in. And you take this. This does line up with the dowel. So there's pins in this one. There's two little pins where the dowels go beside the hole. So you got to make sure it's in the right spot or it won't go together right. Then you put that back on there. Line her up. And then screws back in. What I like to do is you put two in, and then run them in a little bit. Okay, so they're run down. It's pretty close there. And then I put the other two in. Run them down too. I run them down fairly fast with the drill. I've got to be careful with this drill because it's pretty strong. And it's going into plastic, so it's easy to strip. So you got to kind of... I can feel it when it's getting really tight. Okay. There. You hear the drill slow down. You don't want to over torque it. So then, well, it's basically locked, but it'll give you a bit of a I'll plug myself in. Gives it a little bit of leeway so nothing's gonna break. So there you go. All right, so we remembered that this shim was on the gear side. Shim back on the gear side. Some will come with shims, some will come without shims. Then That's not relevant. Bring the patient back up here. Take the diff, and it goes back in. So to get this back in, you have to lift up one axle, slide the axle, make sure those O-rings are still in the ends, and then just handle that back in there. That'll slip in a second. Once you turn it around, there you go. Then, so you also have to make sure that that shim goes back in where it came out of, right behind the bearing. There, that's back in right where it should be. Then the cover goes back on, and it goes on like so. Upper part of the motor mount. So that should just slip right back on there. Make sure it's flush on both sides. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this up. Put those other little screws in that are basically, they're holding the case on, but they're not. They're honestly not doing much. So drive those back in. Same idea. Don't overdriving. Oh. And then change my bit to the bit that I was using before. Probably won't be able to find that. There it is. There's noise over here. So change that screws out, my bit out. Drive these back in. Remember what they're going into. These are going into steel, aluminum. You can hear them tighten down a lot easier than, a lot nicer than in the plastic. Then it's just these two mounts on the side. And there you have it. She's done. So before, when I grabbed this, maybe I should have done a video before I did it. But whoa. When you would grab, the way you can tell that they're too loose is if you grab the front wheels hold them still and you pull it, the back wheels would roll. And see, it doesn't roll anymore. It rolls for a bit, just taking up the slack, and then it's locked. So now you won't get ballooning of your front tires when it won't do it. Like it'll do, before it would do a wheelie, but once it got off the ground, these tires would just go, the front tires would just go nuts, balloon and everything. And now it'll wheelie a lot easier, but it'll be more controllable, in my opinion. So there you go, guys. MT8, big brother to the MT10. They say it's not as strong as the MT10, but I haven't broke mine yet. Then again, I don't beat the shit out of my stuff, so.